Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Red Path. It's Dara and Brian here with you today for yet another fantastic tier list, the top type of content that you can get in the 40k sphere right now. We're going to be talking about a little bit of a different type of tier list today. We're going to be talking about matchups. So, how we kind of rate world leaders into all the other factions in the game right now, given where we are in the current meta and all that good stuff. Brian, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, Dara. It's good to be back from work. Weekend's here. I'm really excited to kind of lean back, relax, and get some painting done. So yeah, I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with this one. This one's gonna definitely
I think
stir the
so
pot a
too.
bit.
Yeah. So basically, the way we're going to structure this is, so I've got the stat check matchup matrix open here, and we're going to go through the data from the last, I guess it's 3 or 4 weeks at this point. Basically, since the balanced data slate last came out and the points were adjusted and all that good stuff, because we've got a decent amount of games for the world leaders in at this point, 666 to be precise, which is a beautiful number of games for a chaos faction. So we're going to look at that and we're going to kind of like contextualize some of the numbers that we're seeing because some of them are a little bit confusing to me and Brian, and then we're going to kind of have our own little tier list here as we work through all the different factions, and basically give our opinions in terms of where we as players feel about how certain matchups are. And the reason that we're doing this is because there probably will be a slight difference of opinion from myself and Brian. Obviously, as we know, Brian is kind of like one of those top table players, out there winning tournaments and stuff. And I'm more one of the homies who likes to go 3-2, 4-1 on occasion. So I'll be kind of giving like that mid-table or upper mid-table perspective, and Brian will be giving those top table perspectives. A lot of the views are probably going to be the same. Some of them will be different, but it's going to be quite interesting. And it would also be super interesting to hear you, the viewers' thoughts on where you feel some of these matchups are and how you've been finding them. So let us know down below or hop in Discord and let us know about that there. You must excuse me if I sound a bit nasally in this video as well. Hay fever season is upon us in Ireland, and I am struggling on this day. But without further ado, shall we dive into this and get the matchups on screen? I think Brian is going to share the wonderful tier list template that we've got going on here.
Sure.
There it is.
And I think it's also worth mentioning before we get too far, we're going to, as we start placing some of these factions, we're going to do so according to like how we'd expect and perform at a top table gameplay. Like once you've really mastered your game plan and you're playing somebody else who's also a faction expert, how you could expect to perform. Because of course, some armies are a little bit harder to pilot than others, and that can in itself skew data when you have an army like Custodes wrecking the scene, right? Where it's
Yeah.
not really crazy hard to pilot, but you can see it put up a lot of numbers, but then it drops off once it gets to a higher elo. So just take into account a lot of this is actually still going to be broadly Dara and I's opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Like, we don't speak for the wider community here. I guess the way that we kind of talked about it before the video is like how we would feel if we paired into one of these armies at a tournament, right? Like how what our gut is telling us. We've got some really innovative titles for the tiers here. We've got the easy claps as like you should win that, and so on and so forth. And basically, we're kind of using a slightly deeper version of how they kind of rate WTC, like teams matrices, where it's basically like green light, orange light, red light, and basically like that kind of would tell you how confident you are into a matchup. Like a green matchup is going to be one that you're probably certain to win, and red is one that you're probably certain to lose. We've added like a couple of ones in between where it's like less of a certainty to kind of account for all that good stuff. But yeah, that's the tiers, and that's the way that we're going to be talking about them. But first up, we've got the sisters, the Adeptus Sororitas, which as of right now, taking the last couple of weeks of data, we are currently sitting at a 32% win rate into Sisters with a total of 28 games played. So, not a crazy data pool. None of these are going to be crazy deep data pools right now, but that is a pretty low win rate. It's one of our lowest ones. And I think that indicates that World Leader players in general are struggling into Sisters. I can understand that. There is a lot of stuff in a sister's army, and it can be difficult for an army with a less amount of stuff like the world leaders to get through all of that. And I think familiarity is a thing as well. Sisters have been an army which has been consistently not one of the most popular armies in the game, but is rising in popularity in a big way now. And I think world leader players that lack that familiarity with the sisters don't really understand how their acts of faith work and stuff can get surprised. But what do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I think this is an army that has a lot of very easy traps to set up from the sisters' perspective that are incredibly easy for world leader players to fall into. Namely being I've been stuck in these infinite loops before where they do suffer and sacrifice, and Engron's doing nothing but smacking a 30-point character every turn of the game. So if you're not careful with your model placement and you're not dodging heroic interventions for suffer and sacrifice, you can find yourself in a situation where Morven Vol and 3 battle suits are just sitting next to one little 30-point character. It's like, what do you do? Like, you have to get kind of creative to deal with that problem, be it tossing grenades or something to pick off the character. If you can't, you kind of just got to dodge the problem altogether because they can't just heroically intervene, suffer, and sacrifice. Arcos are a tar pit. I don't think really anything in our army other than Exalted 8-bound just straight up pick up 10 Arcos
Yeah, Arcos
cleanly.
are tough. Yeah, yeah,
Like, we can put a dent in them, but then if you don't kill it all the way, they charge you on their turn and then suffer and sacrifice with the few Arcos that are left, and you're stuck in the tar pit.
yeah.
This army's got a lot of tools that are really good at dealing with elite shock armies. So I can see why that's a struggle for World Eater players.
Yeah, I get it, but at the same time, we have a lot of tools to deal with them. I think they don't really have great leadership, so Exalted 8-bound can actually just like shut down their game on a failed leadership check for the no fallback, and like we just have a ton of tools. You know, they're actually not crazy efficient in toss. The one thing sisters don't like is mass T6 infantry bodies, which we have in abundance. So that can really throw their game plan out the window. I personally don't feel bad in the sisters. Like when I see sisters, I'm like, I'll probably win this game. I don't think I've lost the sisters in 10th. There's something about it is just like, I don't know. I don't really find it too terrible. I think I would put them in the category of thinking man's game. But I don't know. Where are you sitting with him?
I've actually been clapped a few times as edition by sisters. Scott Ketchum, which is actually a really good friend of mine. He's one of the top sister players in the country. There's a big difference between, similar to World Eaters, there's a big difference between a middling sisters player and a top tier sisters player. And a top tier sister player will play the game like it's chess. Um, I probably was going to put it into maybe I can get lucky. That's orange. I'm at least going to respect the army before, like, I'm going to respect the player a little bit until I can start getting a judge of how they can actually handle world leaders on the table. Because usually you can tell really quick somebody's familiarity with world leaders. Um, I personally would still keep them, like the 30% still speaks for itself for the win rate. I don't know if it's spread my cheeks. Like this might actually be one of our worst matchups according to stat check. I don't think it's that bad, but I definitely still want to respect them on the table.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think maybe a bit of my own personal confidence into the army is like bleeding into my judgment, but I'm okay with like maybe I can get lucky as a more generalist opinion. Um, And next up, we have our good friends, the Adeptus Custodes, right now on the metadata dashboard with 23 games in this current season. We've got a win rate of 52.2%, which is honestly, I'm going to say it, a little bit lower than what I was expecting with that
That's
amount of games.
surprising. That's
Yeah,
surprising to me.
yeah. I'm guessing that like maybe some more leader players are getting like found out in the fact that like there's a weird custodes detachment that they don't really necessarily understand. Like Auric champions can be weird if you don't know what it does, I guess. But
I mean, Talon still has reactive moving, which is really annoying, and I think Talons is slowly
yeah,
emerging as the better of the custodian detachments.
yeah, I've played
But
Null Maidens once, and that shit was weird, man. If that was like practice for Dread Talons, but
yeah,
I I'm honestly gonna put this like in my opinion, it's at the top of like if I throw, I'll be made fun of because I think like you guys would drag me through the ringer if I lost to Custodes at this point. I just think we have like all the assets that we need to beat this army. Like they're on the back foot almost immediately, right?
because custodians used to be spread my cheeks, right? Like their access to mass universal
Yeah,
fights first was, I felt like, the biggest problem we had going into them. And additionally, the -1 damage strat they had was also awful because all of our damage is damage 2. We have a lot of damage 3. Um, Being knocked down to damage 1, damage 2, really hurt us in this matchup. Them being able to fights first and dictate the game on there from their perspective, was what made the matchup hard. Granted, a 2-up, 4-up can still be tough to crack for like berserkers, but our characters and our 8-bound should, in my mind, just be running them right over. kind of without their consent. Because like, what are they gonna do? Like, they don't have fights first. We just get to run at them. They can't stand on an objective anymore. Yes, they can put wardens on an objective. We're still fighting, so we can threat overload them with -1 damage. I'm not really sure why that win rate is still as low as it is. I'm glad to see it above 50% finally. Um, if I got paired into Custodes at a tournament, I'd actually probably be pretty happy.
Would you
Like,
you go as far as easy claps? I honestly,
I feel like the game is ours to mess up.
I think so too. Yeah, like it is like if I throw, I'll be made fun of. But like realistically, I would be shocked if I lost the Custodes game at this point. You know?
And I think the trick for the world leader players out there is like you still have to respect Custodes. They still probably dumpster any other melee army in the middle of the board in terms of raw damage output. But you being able to fight the game on your turns just because we're faster than them is exactly how I'd want to be playing that game. Still respecting
Yeah.
them, but just waiting for your go turn to just pick up 1,500 points of golden boys in one go.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. It's probably one of our easiest matchups in the game.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
But it's also very easy to mess up. So
I mean, you got
like
it's like you said, you got to respect it. Like, yeah, if you go into and just like basically tell your opponent like, yeah, I don't care what your army does, I'm just gonna run you over. Like, that's not gonna work. Maybe there's a bit of that confidence, which is kind of pertaining to the fact that we're not at a higher win rate when people are going into it just being like, oh, the internet has told me that I just auto beat custodes now, which isn't quite the case.
no.
But it is easy collapse, I think. So yeah, fair enough. Next up we've got the good old AdMech. Only 8 games played here, so very small data pool, basically meaningless. But it's a win rate of 37.5%. So most of those 8 games are losses. I'm gonna guess that's like a factor of like just not having any idea what the army does.
I've played against every army on this tier list multiple times, and I've yet to play against AdMech.
Yeah, I haven't played them either. Like I kind of know what they do. I know what Cybernetica cohort does, and it's just like tons of stuff on the table, which is kind of like not the worst thing in the world for us to see, especially if you've got enough berserkers or just 8 pound or whatever. To
I
me, I feel like it's not easy claps because I just don't have the familiarity with it yet. Like if I paired this in a tournament like next week, I would be like, okay, I've got to ask my opponent like quite a lot of questions here and like look at their list. But I think it's probably if I throw, I'll be made fun of. That kind of category.
You see, I'm kind of a little bit more, right? Like AdMech has a lot of negative energy associated with the army still. Like GW has gone multiple balance seasons in a row saying, "Oh, we'll fix AdMech next time. We'll fix AdMech next time." AdMech still really hasn't been fixed. It's been kind of one of the more classic recurring problems of 10th edition, which they haven't done much lately, but they just make bad armies have more stuff. It's just more bad stuff, and eventually more bad stuff equals good, right? Um, I think there's a lot of negative energy associated with the AdMech. So whenever I do see a dedicated AdMech player, I know that they are in it for the long haul, and I know that there's a reason why they're still playing AdMech. And that already gives me a little bit of a sense of fear. It's like, okay, you're brave enough to show up with this army. I'm at least going to try to respect it a little bit. In swarm armies, we do pretty well into. AdMech does struggle with damage output. I feel like this is if I throw, I'll be made fun of if you go first. If you go second, it's the classic swarm trope of now you're just locked in your deployment zone and they're just scoring and you can't stop them. I don't know, AdMech does play the scoring game pretty well. So again, I'm going to err on the side of respecting the win rate a little bit and want to put them down a tier, probably into Thinking Man's game.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Because I feel like if you want to be successful, you really got to sit down and figure out what this army does because
It's a
nobody knows
thinking
what this
man's
army
game in the
does.
sense of yeah, you don't know what it does when you rock up to the table and you have to think about it. Okay, fair. I don't disagree. Okay, cool. Next up, we have the dreaded Eldari with 31 games, so a decent amount of games. We're rocking a 43.5% win rate, which to be honest is like for the general player pool, I don't think it's like that surprising. As someone who has got quite a lot of reps into Eldari and understands like their current MSU build, I can see why people who don't have those reps would struggle into it. It is difficult to, you know, look across the board, see that many assets on your opponent's side of the table, and work out exactly how you're going to curtail all of them. People who aren't familiar with how the likes of warp spiders move around the map, with how the likes of your shadow specters move around and things like that, it can be very confusing. So I can see why the win rate isn't, like pushing the 50%. I think it's a thinking man's game in the sense of like it is challenging because you have to really outthink your opponent. You have to play the movement game better. Like the game is just entirely won and lost in positioning and
Correct.
how
I
you use your movement because like we're probably one of the only armies in the game that can like to a point outmove Eldari because of how fast we can be and how we can leverage charge movement as well. So in my opinion, if I'm playing like switched on full brain power, thinking about how I'm going to use my movement, it's a coin toss, assuming equal skill. Like I'm gonna say it's a big yellow matchup for me.
Yeah, and I kind of agree. I don't think there's any luck in this game. I think it's entirely it's playing back to playing chess. Their pieces move 24 inches, our pieces move 17-inch arch, which is pretty much the same thing once we move charge 7-inch charge. Um, Eldar has a lot of tools to help kind of mess with us, and we have a lot of things that can just shut them down. You get a bunch of blood-surging berserkers in their backline, and they have no idea what to do. Eldar really is kind of king at chip damage. They don't really have anything that can just outright blow up a brick at 10 berserkers. So once you learn how to like really take advantage of the fact that they can't just outright blow something up without dumping, Eldar is actually kind of taking off right now. Um, that is a thing that's starting to happen.
Yeah, those striking
I
scorpions, right?
know some of my local teams are getting into it.
Yeah.
Yep, and to an extent, fire dragons are basically melee. Um, Dropping falcons in your face and jumping out and melting your forehead.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I have a very, very positive win rate into Eldar against other top level players. You just can't mess up. Eldar will punish you harder than any other army for your mistakes as a world leader player. So you really just got to be on top of your game.
Yeah. It's really it's peak thinking man's game, right? Like I think that's quite fair. Okay, next up is the Astra Militarum, which is quite interesting. With 34 games played, we're hitting a bang in the middle 50% win rate, which is honestly higher than I'm expecting. I think like I don't know, man. I thought Guard was going to be lower. Like
Well,
Guard is, I don't know. They throw up that Ogren brick, 80 and Ogren strung across the board. It's just like, man, what am I going to do about this shit? It's
but
real
of
annoying.
all the guard players I know, I don't know that many that own actually more than 6 Ogren. Just from like a
Yeah, yeah.
player perspective. And a lot of the guard players I've seen in tournaments are still doing 100 infantry with a mixture of sprinkling of tanks. And it's only once you get to those like really sweaty tables, that's when you
Very
see
true. Yeah,
the
the amount of
indirect
people
stuff come
actually
out.
like going hard into Guard, it's not that much, I guess. Like the majority of, I don't want to like sound like condescending or like anything like that because I think it's quite cool. But like a lot of the Guard players are in it for the flavor, and like that's awesome. But if I rock up to the table with my non-gron list and I see something like a shadow sword or something, I'm like, okay, cool, we're having a good time this game.
Correct. If
Um,
you see any Baneblade on the table, you're probably in easy claps.
yeah, like I'm gonna say it's not really easy claps in my opinion. Like,
Oh, if you see, you will know instantly what type of guard player you're fighting just
yeah,
by looking at the list. There's no guard player that's playing a mass indirect with Bulgrin list and expecting to just not like that. There's a big difference between a meta guard list and a non-meta guard list. And I
but then
think
it's like the
then
pilot as well, right? Like a lot of Gary players will potentially bring the meta list, but not be able to pilot it right to the top. I like
I feel like this is quintessential. Maybe I can get lucky
really. You think it's
because
that low?
I really do. Because there's a lot of maps where you can just, and a lot of really bad missions where you're like, if I do not get first turn and they start pinning my stuff, it's gonna be a very big uphill battle. Um,
I don't know if it's that bad. I like maybe it is, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Personally, for me, it's like thinking man's game. I think, like, if you outmaneuver them early, like if you've got that first turn, it can be pretty easy to get into a favorable board state and then just fight out of there. And like guard don't really have a lot of answers to something like three exalted eight bound, just deep striking in and tagging some stuff, and then just honestly being such a massive problem in the backline. Um,
Yeah, once you get there, it's fine. It's getting there's the issue. Once you're -2 to your move, advance, and charge,
sure,
and
sure.
after you've gotten past the wave of Bulgrin Meatball, then it's easy game. But you
Yeah.
cracking Bulgrin, from my experience, requires like 4 times the points investment than Bulgrin are actually worth to actually pick them up.
Oh yeah, Bulgren are dumb. But like the way I'm looking at it right now, like where we're placing them is I'm thinking in my head, do I want to play like Jakob Johansson on Eldar or do I want to play David Gaylord on guard? And I think I'd rather play David on guard just because it's kind of like one of those things where it's like once you crack the guard nut, you will just like bulldoze them. Whereas Eldar is like you can't stop thinking about that game until the bottom of turn 5 when it's over, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, regardless, I think Eldar is going to be higher. Or I
In terms
guess,
of,
so
well,
you're saying
lower,
Eldar
right?
is more like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I think that yeah, where it is right now is probably where I'd agree with it.
Okay. Well, again, there's a lot of variance for guard players.
Yeah, for sure.
Then you have me getting scared shitless by Nick Agelio on right of the Rohirrim 30 Cav.
Listen,
That one was
that's a
that one was
whole
straight up
different.
here for 3 turns until I
Yeah,
figured out what was happening.
that's crazy. Yeah, that's a whole different kind of vibe. All right, sweet. That is the guard. So next up, we've got the Templars, which is a fun one. We're hitting a 56.8% win rate after 22 games so far this season. Again, honestly, higher than I was expecting. But what about you?
I think that's the Marine effect of there being a billion Marine players, and a lot of them are playing what they have from their Leviathan starter box.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's quite true. I'd say.
because like a World Eater player, like if you're a newer World Eater player or you're just starting out, you go buy the World Eater Combat Patrol. That's a lot of really good models that are very core to the army because we don't really have model choice.
yeah.
Space Marine players can get lost in the choice, right? Because what could have been meta in ninth edition, which is like Eradicator spam and the Nerf gun blaster guys that we don't even hear about anymore, Desolation Marines.
Hey man, they were good at the start of 10th. Never
They
forget.
were, then they got sent. Like I haven't seen one on the table this edition.
Yeah.
Still, like your people could be showing up to your local meta and playing them. What could be old ninth edition lists and expecting to like
I
do
mean, like,
well, but
yeah. It's also like the Templar player has to beat the World Leaders puzzle, which they have the tools to do. They just have to apply them correctly. And I guess maybe the majority of the game so far is not necessarily the case. Like, World Leaders isn't an easy matchup for Templars, but like I keep playing them on Righteous Crusaders, and it's kind of like a bit of a head wreck as well. For me, assuming like equal skill at the mid tables level, though, I'm gonna put them straight in the Thinking Man's game. Like easier than Eldar and Guard in the sense of like I'm more confident that I can beat the Templars player simply because I know all I have to do here is like out combat maneuver my opponent, which I can do, when my brain is working.
and
And like our profiles into them are mostly better than their profiles into us.
I can kind of agree to that. Because there are three mainstream ways to play Black Templars too. I haven't had the privilege of playing against the Ironstorm variant, which I think it's dumb that Black Templars can have 6 Gladiator Lancers, but they probably don't take that, but they can. Um, then you have Righteous Crusaders, which I think is probably our better of the three variants fighting into. Because a Righteous
It's also
Crusader,
becoming the most common one. Like a lot of Templars players are playing Crusaders now.
and they'll throw a 20-man brick in front of you and say, haha, 5 up feeling pain with Grimaldus. And then
Yeah.
you walk up with 6 Exalted 8 bound and you
And
just
they will
say,
go straight through them, yeah.
+1 to wound sweep with rerolls sustained. And
Yeah.
there's probably going to be like a few left, but
Oh, dude,
that
I
brick is going to be
literally like
gone.
a couple of weeks ago I had that experience where I was literally just like, oh yeah, okay, what I'm gonna do here is dump like the 6 exalted 8 pound, 3 regular 8 pound, and 10 berserkers into this brick because it looks hard to kill. Just swept with the exalted and killed the entire squad and left Grimaldus like sitting there by himself and was like, huh. But the problem was the squad fought on death and then killed all my berserkers in 8 pound. So I was like,
So jackal, wrap them with jackals, kids.
yeah, or just like
Um,
walk in with the exalted and kill them with those, and then do the jackals as well for flavor. But yeah,
I,
for me, it's like you have to think about the game. Like you have to respect the Black Templars player no matter what,
sure.
because like they have a lot of fights first. They have a lot of good combat. The Emperor's Champion will mess your entire life up if you go into him, as I
Yeah,
have
Sword
found out
Bros plus any of their characters is horrifying.
for sure.
I don't think there should be just a straight up +1 damage like universal to anything you want in your
Yeah,
army, and then taking this sweep because Emperor's Champion has a 10 attack sweep or something. Grimaldus has a 12 attack sweep. What if we made a damage too, right? Now
yeah,
you suddenly have like Angron's sweep profile on a 100-point model. That's pretty terrifying.
yeah. So you gotta respect it, right? But ultimately, they have to respect you. So it's just kind of who plays the better game, which makes it kind of peak thinking man's game, right?
Yep. All right, next up.
The old Bangles. Quite a fun one. On the opposite side of the spectrum, in a big way, we've got 27 games put in and a 40.7 win rate, which is kind of strange to me because, in a lot of ways, the Templars and the Blood Angels are not that different from each other in terms of play. Or do you disagree?
I kind of disagree.
It's okay to
I know
disagree.
I know you have a very different exposure to Blood Angels than I mean, I've actually only played the matchup twice. Both into very, very good players, very, very good pilots. But I think your experience comes mostly from a Sanguinary Guard perspective, correct?
Oh, dude, they
Right?
live rent free in my head. But I mean, like, I do play Blood Angels at the club and at tournaments, which don't typically use the Sanguinary Brick. The Sanguinary Brick is when that's when I'm like spread my cheeks territory. I see 10 of those guys in Dante, and I'm just like, it's Jover, man. Like, there's no way I'm coming back from this. They're just gonna deep strike in, and nothing I do will matter. Um, I think it's like you just it's very similar to what we just said with the Templars. Like you just have to outthink them in terms of how you move, what you charge, where you charge it. Like how are you going to deal with 10 deck company fighting on death? You're going to deal with it by like drifting in a Rhino or sending in a ton of Jackals to wrap them so the fight on death doesn't matter so much. Are you going to bank your CP correctly so you've got access to the -1 damage stratagem so that you can make those deck company damage 1 when you've got a feel no pain? There's a lot of like really good ways of dealing with them. One of the ones that I like that I've been doing more recently is like, you know, sending some stuff in, like sniping out the chaplain leaders, so the deck company go to trash leadership, and then just like sending an exalted 8 pound and being like, cool, you're gonna fail that leadership check, pretty likely. Um, it's just
Yeah,
stuff like that. Like there's a lot of tools that we have. The one thing that I hate that Blood Angels can do is they can like shut down my Blood Surge, which, as running 30 Berserkers, Blood Surge is the jam. Because they just like set it up where it's like you blood surge into Death Company and they all just like whip out their melta pistols and just destroy the squad. Then I'm like, oh well, this doesn't feel great.
this
Like
is one of the armies I can't wait for the box lock to come around and get them
they're
because
not. I
fighting.
guarantee you, they're not going to get box locked.
Oh my God, 10 power fists and 10 inferno pistols fighting that with sustained hits too.
Yep, it's a
Oh
vibe.
my God, this is like that can one shot a Warhound Titan with its eyes closed.
Yeah, I put them like right next to Templars, maybe a little bit harder. So like on the right of Templars in our tier list. Um,
I definitely think they're the harder of the Marine variants, any of the Marine variants for us to fight.
yeah, I think they're the
I
hardest Marine variants. Yeah.
I think I would actually be more scared of Blood Angels than I would be of Eldar Guard though,
Yeah, I think that's quite fair actually. Yeah.
because the Blood Angels game plan is actually pretty straightforward. It's I don't want to like sound harsh, but it's like they hold up 4 CP and stare at you.
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah.
what do you do? Or they have a ball predator. Like they just have a bunch of really, really, really efficient ways to just mess you up if you misplay or you don't do exactly the right like thing to negate their melee, right? Wrapping them -1 damage. If you're not doing that, they're just gonna truck you right over. So you got to position exactly perfectly to make what makes that army strong not really affect you,
Yeah.
which is why I'd say that's a solid thinking man's game.
I think that's quite fair. All right, we got demons up next. So right now we're sitting at a 54.2% win rate into demons with 24 games. Kind of fair, I would say. I would maybe have thought us to be a little bit higher. I think the demons game is like not too bad because you can just like pressure them to death basically. The key thing is just like obviously not giving them the space to just like do Realm of Chaos all around the board, which means just controlling your objectives so they don't have their like weird power matrix thing up. Um, and like their most important piece of their army, Be'lakor, has like basically no use in the World Leaders matchup. You know, it's like nothing he does matters outside of like maybe being able to like teleport guys next to him, which is kind of useful.
I mean,
But
that's
like,
something, but they only get to do that once because
yeah,
they're
they
gonna
only
do
get
it
to do it
once,
once.
and
Yeah.
then you're killing Be'lakor.
Yeah, Be'lakor dies really easy, and he also does no damage. Like the thing that's annoying in that list is the grin and clean one with the 4-up shrug. And even that will fall down eventually. You know, it's like that thing kind of lands on an objective, and you can just choose to like go into it and kill it, which requires significant force, or you can just choose to be like, cool, that's your objective. See you later.
Angron's still
Um,
gonna kill him over the course of 2 combat phases, or like
yeah,
Angron plus 8 bound can still like
one tap him. Yeah,
I've had Angron smack him, get him below half, and now the 8 bound next to him, full re-rolling the wound roll, actually being able to do enough damage to
to punch
put him down to
through.
one
Yeah,
wound, just those 2 models.
yeah.
Um,
I don't know. I think it's like you gotta respect it, but I think it is if I throw, I'll be made fun of. Like I would be quite confident into that matchup.
they everything they have is characters. So Mo just has a field day into demons, like that's his like favorite place to be.
Your one CP is
Demons,
always going to be useful for +1 to wound.
yeah,
Not that you
and
even really need it. There's a lot of T3 there.
yeah, and then demons are very they're allergic to dice, like dice volume.
Yeah.
And berserkers just dumping dice even into big boys, like 10 berserkers with just no buffs into Be'lakor. I still expect to do like 10 damage, 12 damage to Be'lakor.
Yeah.
Then you add in a character and Be'lakor dies to any of our characters with +1 to wound.
They're also one of those armies that has a lot of like plink damage shooting, which they hate using into berserkers because of blood surge. So like, yeah, I don't know. It's not. It's definitely not easy claps. Like a good demons player can still outthink you, but
Because
it's a pretty good matchup, I would say.
you have to shut down their scoring because demons has never been known for its damage output. It's all about them being able to be anywhere they want to be and then being able to just burst you and run.
Yeah.
So you'd still have to respect their ability, their mobility. They are just infinite, one of those infinite mobility armies. So
Yeah. Not for sure. Okay. CK Chaos Knights up next. Chaos Knights quite a favorable matchup in the meta right now. We've got 22 games into them and a 63.3 or 63.6% win rate, which is pretty high. A little bit higher than I expected given the general player population. I play a lot of CK in terms of like playing into them, and I do find them a pretty easy army to beat in the sense of you either decide, and I spoke about this with Taylor on that recent tournament winning video. When it comes to knights, you either decide like I'm either gonna like kill a single like war dog in this turn, or I'm gonna kill 4 war dogs in this turn. And as long as you make one of those decisions, you're gonna probably win the game. The only thing you have to respect with knights is their ability to like T-pose through walls, which is like obviously quite strong. Makes it much harder to screen them out compared to like IK. But they can't T-pose through models, so you just set up your units correctly, and they can't really utilize the like blast through walls ability. Um, the
I
only
think
thing that's like kind of annoying about CK, in my opinion, and this is coming at it from a non-ground perspective, is like sometimes it's kind of hard to have enough stuff to kill all the war dogs. Because like Card and the boys don't love fighting into a war dog. Mo and
like
the boys also don't love fighting into a war dog.
Khorne and Mo can very easily just spike a war dog off the board with
They
+1 to wound,
can with
with
plus
plus
one
one,
to
wound.
wound, right? But
But
what I'm
now
saying is like,
you can I've from the event I was just in, Mo +10, we're stuck into a war dog for 3 rounds of
exactly,
combat.
yeah, it can happen.
And
It can happen.
and that's just
Um, it can be
it can
annoying, yeah, because CK are typically fielding like 10 to 12 war dogs, which is like you have to know when you're like gonna go into them. And one of the things that I think world leader players may make a mistake in this matchup is like they see an opportunity in turn one to just like launch, exalted 8 bound into like a war dog or 2 war dogs across the board and get it in turn one for like a kill. And like sometimes that's worth it, but more often than not, I don't think it's worth it because like you're not actually gaining any victory points by killing these 2 war dogs, and you're losing your exalted brick. Like the way that I see it is like every unit in my army needs to kill a minimum of 2 war dogs, and a unit like the exalted brick, which is like peak killing knight potential, they need to kill like 3 to 4, in order for the
yeah.
game to be like a successful win condition. But I don't
And
know. What do you think about this one?
I feel like Knights is like one of our ideal go turn. Like when we commit to them, we want to take 4 to 5 armatures from them, which will then be completely in front of their face, and it's like a damage check, stat check. It's like all right, now do you have enough damage output to deal with all of the problems I have in front of you? If the answer is no, you table them in 2 turns, which I feel like against every time I played against knights, that's usually been what's happened. I just slam them. Angron takes 2 war dogs down or a big knight down. The exalted 8-bound take a knight down. Usually Mo or Khorne plus their squads without +1 to wound can drag a knight down. And even regular 8-bound with +1 to wound statistically bring a knight down.
Oh yeah, for sure,
Um,
for sure.
so on that one go turn where you slam them and maybe some of their armies out of the way and can't interact with you anymore, like you present that stat check of like, okay, now what? It's going to take like 4 war dogs from your army to kill Angron.
Yeah.
Now you have 2 war dogs left to deal with the rest of my army. That's not going to be enough, and I'm just going to that tidal wave of just tabling is going to keep happening, and maybe Angron comes back. It's a really big snowball matchup, one way or the other. If they catch you off guard and like you fail all those stat checks, right? You fail their toughness stat check, even through +1 to wound, you're not killing knights. Your exalted 8-bound whiff because they hit on 3s. You can suddenly find yourself losing, but I still think it's our game to lose.
You know what does scare me though is when it's like 8 to 10 war dogs and one big boy, because I'm like, ooh, the big boy. I don't really have a crazy amount of answers for right now. Like a lancer is pretty scary.
Angron does not
Um,
kill a Lancer on average.
Angron does not kill a lancer, no, and there's like an enhancement I think which gives them it might be a feel no pain or an invuln in combat. There's some way that they can
It's a
get more.
they get a
Okay.
6-up feel no pain and they get a 5-up feel no pain if you're battle shocked.
Yeah, is
I
that the
think.
enhancement?
No, that's just a strat. They can just
I actually think they might have an enhancement that reduces damage or something like that. Anyway,
they
they
have an
have a
enhancement that reduces AP. They can give themselves
maybe
Armor
it
of
was that.
Contempt on a knight.
Yeah, I think that might have been it. I actually I fear the big boy. You know, like the big boy is one of those things where I'm like, ooh, this thing walking around is a problem. But yeah.
My buddies had a lot of success with 6 carnivores, 3 brigands, a big boy, and then Rodigus with a pile of
Oh, dude,
nerdlings.
I've seen people running that. Like Rodigus keeps showing up in those lists. It's kind of fun. I guess that is the other thing is like if they ally in Nurglings, which like means that you can't do the big alpha push. But honestly, the more that I'm playing that matchup, the less I'm wanting to do that big alpha push into CK. So I don't know. I don't really think
Because
it's like a big deal.
one of the strengths CK has over Imperial Knights too, and we won't talk too much longer on this, but like their a billion Havoc launchers can
Yeah.
tear apart Eldar. Like that
Oh
just makes
yeah.
that game
Yeah.
that matchup just so free for them. I feel like just because they get to tear apart the Eldar MSC squads. But for us, like
It's like cool. Now you're
you're
Blood Surge.
yeah, what you can do?
Wee.
Shoot my jackals. Like
Yeah. No.
I think
Okay.
I'm pretty solid with bottom of if I throw, I'll be made fun of.
I would put them higher than demons to be honest.
You think so?
Oh man, like I'm way more confident in a CK than demons.
All right.
Demons, you
Well,
never know. Like someone could just be a god. You could play like Mike B, and he could just like take you down. Anyway, CSM. So I'm not going to go through the metadata dashboard stats for CSM because they're based off the old codex. I have not yet played a game into the new CSM. I will be doing it next week, which I'm really excited about. But right now, I think it's like definitely, in my opinion, thinking man's game, almost like regardless of detachments because they're all like powerful in different ways. Renegade Raiders, I think, is really the standout one, but I actually think we have an amazing game into Renegade Raiders because like they kind of just don't hit as hard as we do. Yeah, they've got a lot of cool tricks and stuff, but we can play around those tricks quite well. I feel like they really hate things like Blood Surge, you know, where it's just like this is going to be a real problem for you. But what do you
you gotta
think?
be Renegade Raiders is probably going to be the more common detachment we see come out of CK for the people who are playing that in veterans. I don't think veterans or the existing index detachment are better iterations of what we had to fight against before. So kind of the feelings that we had towards Chaos Space Marines before, if you're fighting either veterans or the index attachment, I feel like the matchup got better for us a little bit. Now, Renegades, um, you're gonna have to. This is like epitome thinking's man game. If you play into their traps, they're gonna table you in 2 turns. Um, don't be putting your Exalted 8-bound on objectives early. Don't be putting Mo onto objectives early. Don't be putting Angron into objectives early. This is a matchup where your Rhinos, your Spawn, your Jackals shine, toe an objective with some useless action monkey and make them come out and overcommit to blow it up. Sure, they'll get their bonus AP, but then you're just gonna run down their Predator or whatever came out to shoot you. Um, this attachment's gonna look very, very, very strong on off the get-go just because it's going to really bully those mid-table players that don't know how to play around the gimmick. But as soon as you get around that gimmick, I still don't see it being better than Index
I totally agree.
Chaos
Yeah.
Space Marines.
It's kind of
So
like playing against T-Suns in the sense of like messing around the objectives and just like choosing the right time to do stuff. But
now I
I'm
could be
very much
very
with you.
wrong here. I could be very wrong here. I have no data here. I haven't played against it yet. Um, I really don't know what to expect. I know personally playing Dread Talons into other World Eater players a lot recently. I actually have a lot of fun in that matchup with Dread Talons. That can be a bad matchup, but I mean, I
Relax,
don't think
okay?
any, you don't have to
Relax.
worry about that
I'm
one.
not talking about Chaos Cults, so you don't get to talk about Dread Talents. But if I was talking about Chaos Cults, I would bulldoze every World Leaders player under the sun. But
But broadly, 90% of Chaos Space Marine players are going to be playing one of those three detachments.
exactly, yeah. I think I would favor this matchup somewhere in the region of where we have Templars and Imperial Guard. I would maybe say it is probably a little bit easier than Imperial Guard, but not as easy as Templars. What do you think?
I think I'm going to respect it a little bit more than Imperial Guard just because they
Okay,
have a lot more mid-board tricks. Like Guard, crack the nut, you win. Chaos Space Marine's a little bit trickier than that. You actually have to be on point. I don't think you have to think as hard as Eldar
sure, sure, sure,
about
sure.
positioning, but Chaos Space Marines is one of those armies that can just blow you up and kill you dead on the spot and punish you pretty hard. So still got to respect
Cool,
him.
cool, cool, cool. Dark Angels. We currently have a 66.7% win rate into this army with 18 games played. Pretty high, I would say.
And
I'm expecting most people to be playing like what are you, Iron Angels, the Dark
I mean,
Angels Iron Storm build,
I
Fortnite
guess
Battle Bus.
we didn't really talk about it with Black Templars. We should probably have assumed that that was Righteous Crusaders up there. I think we'll just go ahead and assume that Dark Angels is book
Iron Storm.
Dark Angels. That just well,
Oh,
Space Marines could be anything, right?
sure, 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 sure.
Let's just say the Dark Angels detachment in general. Um, yes,
Easy
I have not
claps.
seen. I haven't seen a single Dark Angels player
Yeah.
not on Iron Storm, which is just Azrael and the boys,
But
basically.
then do we have to talk about it as Iron Storm, right? Because like that's what it is almost at this point. Um, and yeah,
Um,
I think it's even if it
it's
is
a.
that, it's like if I throw, I'll be made fun of because like
I don't know about that.
it's I don't know. I don't really think it's like that hard of a matchup.
I've been on the receiving end of Iron Storm a few times. We don't have answers to Redemptors. We
No, they
just
are a pain in the ass. Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
And when you say Iron Storm, like the true Iron Bird lists have two Eagles and two Redemptors, we have one thing that kills those reliably, and that's Angron. And if they just come out turn one and blow Angron up, you're like, well, I guess I enjoy my damage two weapons a lot now, right? Like, thank God I have damage two, and you're just going to be -1 damage everywhere. An Exalted 8-bound brick with +1 to wounds, sustained, and either reroll source kills a Redemptor on a 50/50, which
Awesome.
is horrifying times four. Um, I
I just like honestly I have so much like vitriol towards like this list archetype in terms of like how boring it is, how dumb it looks, and like how little respect I will give to the player playing it because I'm just like, do you hate your life? You know, why have you chosen to do this? I just like I don't know. I just don't care about
I'm
this
very
matchup.
neutral into it because like everything I've described sounds awful, but like once you touch a Redemptor, nothing bad happens. Like
I mean, it
they're
does
not
punch you.
5 attacks hitting on threes that are damage three, exalted 8-bound, feel no pains, and like you lose maybe
Yeah,
one
yeah.
exalted 8-bound, right? It's like surviving that first round of shooting, which is strong, it's gonna hurt. But after that, as long as you're touching their stuff, which we can do, we do have the mobility to do it. They can't go anywhere. I definitely respect that army a bit more
I mean,
in terms of like
it's probably thinking man's game.
it's where everything's going. Um,
It'll start to spread out. We got some good ones coming up. I think it's yeah, it's probably around there.
I think that matchup's not awful for us. It's just our answers to it aren't great, other than shutting. We can shut them down, but we can't kill them.
Yeah. I fucking hate that bill so much. Like
I do
it's
too.
just
It's
so
just
boring. Okay. Spicy one up next. We've got Dead Guard. 35 games played, quite a lot of games, and a 60% win rate. Honestly, shocking.
it's at 61% win rate.
Yeah, yeah. dude, like
man. Like,
Death
or
Guard, assuming equals skill, is like genuinely spread my cheeks territory for me. Like that matchup is fucking hard. What are people
th
doing that I don't know about? You know?
they have the tools to mess us up.
Yeah.
Typhus is dumb.
Typhus is
80 point.
dumb. The fight
Typhus is
first
dumb.
plague bricks are dumb. The amount of indirect is like crazy.
Good
They have,
indirect too,
you
because they
know, you know
can.
that plague boss that like Aiden from DGP talks about, where it's just like two malignant sorcerers hanging out at the top of the Rhino's firing deck, just like literally being a micro Land Raider Redeemer is horrifying to play against. Although I do think that's like not many people are actually playing that, but I don't know why they wouldn't be because it's so powerful. Um, this
They're
matchup for me is honestly very, very hard. Their Overwatch is terrifying. Like,
because it's all anti-infantry 2-up too, which
yeah,
is really
exactly.
good into our T6 profiles. Because at first you're like, oh, it's a heavy flamer. You're winning on fives. This is gonna be great. And then it's like anti-infantry 2-up with AP2 essentially, because it's Death Guard, right? They're always gonna pick the bonus AP.
Yeah,
That buff was insane. They were just like, hey, what if your whole army gets an extra pip of AP? And
yeah.
you're like, oh, on what? And you're like, everything. And you're like, oh, that's pretty good. I'll take that. Um,
Like this is probably, I'm not even exaggerating. This is like my scariest matchup in the entire faction spread right now.
um, I think it's definitely going to be in the bottom here. Spread my cheeks. I don't know. I think there's a couple other armies on here I am more afraid of than Death Guard.
There can be more than one army spreading your cheeks.
Correct. Uh, yeah, because we're gonna talk about it like equal skill. If I'm
Yeah.
at a top table with an equal skill Death Guard player, I'm definitely gonna groan a little bit and be like, uh-oh. Like,
Yeah, like if you're on like the final table of a tournament, and you see a deck guard player rocking up, dude, I would be sweating bullets. Scary
yeah.
stuff.
And Death Guard is a very fragile army once you do make contact with them. And if they
Yeah.
mess up with their fight's first placement, like I talked about in one of my in the recap for my last tournament, where basically I negated the Plague Marines fights first like 4 times in a row. The matchup can seem really easy, but if you're playing against somebody who's on top of their stuff and they don't let you get away with that, I could definitely see that just being an uphill battle the whole time.
For sure. For sure, for sure. Okay, Drakari. Drakari is up next. We're currently sitting at only 16 games played, but a 68.8% win rate. So pretty high. Not that surprising, I would say. I think Drakari is probably like the easiest collapse in the game for us right now, just because like they have no answer to Mo. They have very little answer to Angron outside of Dark Lances. They
They have no answer to Exalted 8 Bound.
they have no
You just
answer to regular 8 bound.
you just
They
pop -1 damage and they're like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
that's unkillable
my
now.
incubi 1 damage. Oh no.
And I'm
Um,
wounding you on fours. Great.
they very much
Like,
rely on like hitting something, killing that thing, and then getting back into their boats. The problem is between our field no pains, between the -1 damage and all that kind of good stuff, and our generally good profiles, killing the thing is quite hard for them in combat. And yeah, in my opinion, this is just like peak easy collapse. I would rather play Dark Elder than Custodes. You know, I think it's like maybe the easiest collapse we've got.
I'm inclined to agree. Heroic Intervention just screws this army right over. Um, -1 damage. They don't know what to do. They're really bad into Blood Surge. We're fast enough to catch them. Like, we just have every answer to all of their strengths. We just have really solid answers into. Um, Similar to Eldar, they got a lot of damage, but it's going to come from 10 different units, kind of like wolf pack hunting you, but that does not do really well into blood surging.
No, that's like the
So
worst thing in the world for like trying to take down world leaders. Also because it's like you have to kind of set up plays, like assume you're going to kill a certain amount of things when you're making your positioning moves as the Dark Eldar player, and then it's just like if you've got Feel No Pain up and you've got Exalted 8 bound, it's just like anything can happen, bro. I can roll some fives, you know.
for sure.
Death Watch. The stats for this one are quite funny. I hope this person is not watching. One game which was a loss. So we're sitting at a big 0% win rate into Debt Watch. It peaks spread my cheeks territory. Man, I'm not gonna lie. I have no fucking clue how to talk about this game. I haven't played Debt
I,
Watch this edition. They
I'm
they
gonna
basically don't exist.
I'm gonna choose to respect the win rate, and that is our worst matchup.
Sure. Yeah.
That's
Like
all I'll say. I mean, I'm honestly I have no clue what's going on here.
I've got no opinion on that watch. There's no one playing them. There's no point wasting time talking about them.
Uh,
Sorry about the
earlier
one
when
homie who took the L.
yeah, earlier when I said I've played like 0 games against AdMech, I've seen AdMech players. I've never seen a Deathwatch player like in
Yeah,
the same room as me, and they
yeah.
just don't. So
Right, moving on. Let's get through it. Bo, bo, bo.
GSC,
GSC is up next. GSC is an interesting one. What we've got for GSC is where are we here? There we go. 37.5% win rate, but only 8 games. So really, not enough data to be meaningful. But what do you think about GSC here?
I've ran into this matchup a few times. There's no such thing as like an average GSC player. They're either playing the army because they think it looks cool, or they are playing 4D chess and they're just a chess grandmaster. Um, I would probably put them in the maybe I can get lucky because you're literally just banking on them not coming back and doing really bad on those rolls. You're banking on them whiffing on their blast charges. They're going to 3-inch deep strike around you and just rocket you straight into the sun. Their blast charges one-shot Angron, so good luck screening that out. It is a 6-inch range gun, so you got to find a way to screen Angron out with Jackals, and if you're screening Angron out with Jackals, then you're not screening your Exalted 8-pound. And it just makes for a really awkward play pattern that I don't think is very easy to digest as just an average World Leader player. Um, if I was going in if I'm going into table 5 and I'm playing against a GSC player, I'm going to assume they know what they're doing. And I think you really are banking on just getting lucky with them rolling pretty bad on the revives. The trick against them is like you got to kill most of the squads, not kill all of it, and it's just
The trick is just drive rhinos into their squads and just be like,
correct.
cool, you live here for the rest of the game.
But like I've had situations where they string their guys out and they'll pull and break coherency and then pull their entire squad out of you. Like they'll be like, "Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
take 10
yeah,
casualties
yeah,
to get away from you, right?" Like
yeah.
it's just such a weird matchup.
I think it's like it's probably maybe I can get lucky territory because we are talking about like you rock up, you're assuming like relatively equal skill here. It's a good GSC player. Like I've had it in equal parts. Some of my GSC games, I feel like I've worked out the puzzle and I win, and then some of them I'm just like I don't know what just happened to me. Um, yeah, it is maybe I can get lucky.
And like I'll
I do think
already
non-ground plays much better into GSC than Ron List too, because you don't have this like massive asset that you're like I need to make sure all the demo charges don't go into this.
yeah, because Angron doesn't
Um,
do anything in that matchup. He
yeah.
doesn't have
Also,
enough
like
attacks.
30 berserkers just walk you around is like I don't want to kill you, but do you want to really pop up 3 inches away from me? Well, blood surge you. You know.
Yeah, that's a pretty
Um,
good point. It's just
Last
yeah,
couple of GSC games I played on my 30 Zerk list is literally just both of us being like, we're gonna stand on stuff. I'm gonna drive stuff into you. You're gonna be kind of annoying to me. Neither of us are gonna try and kill each other because it's bad for both of us. And it's just a
Angron is
weird, weird
just a
game.
dead asset. Every time I played against GSC, they're just like, I'm just gonna ignore Angron. There's no way Angron goes 5 turns and gets his points back in that matchup either. Like
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Okay. I think I agree with where GSC is. That's cool. We've got Grey Knights next. Pretty topical one right now. 43.9% win rate with 33 games played. I think that's like actually a pretty fair reflection of where they sit in my mind. GK can be quite difficult if the pilot is like as good as you. And the big problem is you never know with those librarians. It's like, well, if they roll a 6, we in trouble town. Or if they roll a
I,
1, you in trouble town.
I just played a game last night. My opponent had 2 librarians, both rolled a 6, and then he rolled 21 mortal wounds on turn 1. That can
That
just
is indeed
happen.
a thing that can happen. Yeah.
He rolled a 6 again on the next turn, but at that point we were like, I expect it. But like, um,
I think GK is there's like a little bit of the thinking man's game in GK where you're kind of like I can outmove the like Mists of Deimos and like their reactive teleports and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, if I'm being like fully honest, there is like it's on the border of thinking man's game. Maybe I can get lucky because like at the end of the day, you're always hoping those librarians don't just like pop off. There's really very little we can do about them. Blood Surge does mess them up. We have got the speed to like chase them and run them down. You can like do some surrounding stuff to like really mess with them. And I think like a lot of the time in the GK matchup, it's just like a flip deployment zone. Like I'll take theirs, they'll take mine. But the problem is they've taken like fixed and they're gonna get like behind enemy lines and homers and all that kind of carry on.
And you can find
Um,
yourself in a lot of situations where you're banking on that 8-inch charge too, because you're dodging
yes, yeah,
mists.
yeah,
Like that, the last two times I played against GK, I don't want them misting away, so I throw Angron nearby, I throw a +1 to charge, and I try the charge 3 times. Um,
which is like that is like maybe I can get lucky, right? You know.
I'd put them at the top, and maybe I can get lucky.
I honestly think they're harder to beat than sisters.
Okay. Like my experience against like good GK players. Again, any of the uppy downy armies can your experience will vary wildly.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
like, there's always that toxic GK list, which is like triple redeemer, like four Grandmaster, Nemesis, Dread Knight dudes.
the
That's a
Redeemer
vibe.
keeps
Um,
the Redeemer keeps escaping nerfs somehow.
yep,
But
keeps on driving. All right, we got Imperial Knights next. Imperial Knights are best. Yeah, it is our best win rate currently. 26 games in, so enough data for it to be semi-significant. Whopping. What do you want to guess this win rate is, Brian?
ooh, it's our best win rate,
It's our best win rate.
and we're Dark Eldar was like 60, right?
Yeah,
I'll go 65.
78.8%.
Ooh,
Boys, we're doing good into IK. Let's go.
I
Because they can't T-post through walls, and because their small knights are nowhere near as scary as war dogs, the only thing that scares me about IK is Canis, and the what lives rent free in my head is the mysterious guardian Castellan. But that's kind of a meme. Like
the
this matchup is easy claps to me.
what the funniest part of this matchup is the melee knight is only strength 10, so he has its wounding Angron on fives. Just really funny that
That
like
is indeed funny. Yeah.
if you just make your thermal spear like 4-up fuel or your 4-up invulns, you're just chilling. They can't hurt you.
Yeah. Like
Uh,
this is one of those ones where like I kind of said, like you don't want to go gung ho into their deployment zone in the first turn
no.
into Chaos Knights. In Imperial Knights, I think you kind of do, because you can literally just like build a wall, just be like you're gonna live in your deployment zone for like 3 turns.
I will say it is
Um,
obnoxious as soon as they hit the 5-up feel no pain threshold. That is ridiculous, and it is really easy for them to get it.
yeah, when I say gung ho, I mean like send 20 jackals in and just wall their deployment zone. I don't mean like send Angron and the boys in. I just mean like push them forward, be like you can't move, have fun.
I know they're our highest win rate, but I still think they're easier to lose to than the other two up here.
I think Custodes is easier to lose to.
You think so?
Yeah,
It's it it,
IK
it
are
come
very
it
much
comes down to
like
like you can still fail the stat check just because you get unlucky, and then you miss position just a little bit, and knights do knight things and table you.
you can kind of say the same for Custodes,
Sure.
especially with the stat check. I
I guess
mean,
the stat checks, this custody stat check's easier to pass than a knight stat check, so
uh, is it? I mean, wardens.
it's the toughness issue. Oh yeah,
Wardens
we
still
won't spend.
exist.
I won't fight you too much on this one,
Yeah.
and especially if we have a 78% win rate. I still think Dark Eldar is easier,
Oh, Dark
but
Elder is definitely easier. You just put out Mo and you're like, what now? And they're like, I don't know. And then you run my list, which is two Mo's, and I'm like, no, really, what now? And they're like, I really don't know. Until the Razorwing Jet Fighters come in, and I'm like, I can't charge you with anything in my army. And they just shoot dark
shoot him
sides
with the
into me
bolt
all
pistols,
game.
boys.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about that better. Okay. Next up is the other very very high win rate, which galls me no end. We got the Leagues of Votan with 22 games and a win rate of 72.7%. Um, whoever has played these 22 games after this video, send me a DM. Tell me how like your boy needs help in a big way.
It's me. No, I'm saying it's me.
Sure.
I'm on stream just
Sure.
breezing through Votan twice. You can go watch that content if you want. It's free.
I mean,
I don't think this matchup's anything to be scared of.
okay, this matchup like lives rent free in my head, so I have no opinion on it. Like
I think the tilt
I
factor's got
freely
you.
spread my cheeks for this army because I'm just like, I hate you so much. I like spit in my opponent's eye when I walk up to the table, and then I get red carded, which is generally why I lose the matchup. But no, for real, like I I actually just honestly can't have like an opinion on this because I genuinely just like hate this army so much. But I can see how like I can see how you beat them, and I've tried to like implement that
I
in
feel
many
like they're
games.
everything Marines has, but worse. They're like the worst part of Guard and the worst part of Marines put together. We're Horde and we're like mediocre at like damage shooting and
What do you
like
mean
yeah, look,
mediocre? Have you been shot by like six bikes before? Like a full
yeah,
bike squad?
sure, but like now they
That
die because they needed to be close to you to get you. Like
oh my god, dude, they're like half the points of an exalted ape man brick, and they can pick them up in one go. Of course they die after that. They don't care.
yeah, but like they have their like come down and shoot you like okay, the 10 dwarf terminators
They're wild. Yeah.
rain hell. I had 10 of them in the stream game at Adepticon through standing next to the Demon Prince. So 5 up feeling up pain, 4 up invuln, picks up 6 exalted 8 bound with their eyes closed and shooting.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
easy, easy.
they Votan does have the burst, but they don't have the durability to then like make up for that. Like their Terminators are 2 wounds and they don't have an invuln. Angron just walks up to them and is like skipping through like the meadows, like just crushing dwarves for fun. Like
Maybe
I
that's my
guess this
problem.
is yeah, I think we found the problem.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
their best answer to like big things is their Brokir Thunderkin, which have the keyword anti-vehicle 2 up. You know what's not a vehicle? Angron. So like
Yeah.
just I think that might be what is setting this matchup bar in your
No
head is
man,
like
it's honestly it's
nothing
looking
they
a lot
have
good.
kills Angron. They can shoot their casino guns at him, but it's a casino. They're relying on getting lucky at that point. So
Yeah.
it has to be at least the opposite of maybe I can get lucky. Maybe they can get lucky.
I no, I think you're right. Like genuinely I do think you're right. I think I just like too much of my vitriol like seeps into my gameplay. And I just do dumb stuff. Like I could have probably won the last Wotan game I played at Manchester, but like I literally looked my opponent in the eye in turn two and I said, I am gonna go all in on you in this turn and hope I win the game. And I sure went all in and I sure did not win the game. And you know, that's just where we are with it. But let's move on from Votan. I don't disagree with your ruling, but if it was me, it'd be down and spread my cheeks. What do we have next? Necrons, the big bad. 57 games played. So far, I think that's the most amount of games at any one faction, and a lovely 33.3% win rate. So also one of our lowest win rates.
I don't know how, guys. Come on. I
I
just
kind of like I kind of get it like Necrons, and I think this is like the tilt factor coming in for some people where it's just like, oh, not Necrons again. And like let's be real, like a lot of people don't have enough reps into like things like Hypercrypt to really fully work out how to break that
sure.
puzzle.
Y-
Canoptic Cord is literally a stat check. Like there's no puzzle there. It's
I
just
think
like,
Canoptic
can I?
Court's easy. I don't think it's easy claps. I do agree with the Hypercrypt assessment. Like it's very much
Hypercrypt is
so like
like I
Grey
made a
Knight
mistake
vibes
and
where
there's a
it's
monolith
like
in my deployment zone. You know?
correct, but like Canoptic Court isn't doing anything sneaky. They're
No,
just
Canoptic
walking up
Cord
on
is just like,
objectives.
here's the stuff. Can you kill this stuff? And most world leader players would be like, I think I can put this unit into rates and it'll kill them. And if they haven't done it before, they will probably lose the game because of that. But like, you know,
And
you play that game, you
know
work out what kills the rates, and then you just play that
you
out.
have to know the math. And also we got to assume this from like equal skill table players. I don't see myself like losing to Canoptic. The only time I've ever lost to Canoptic was day one, 3 points nerf, pre-mortal wound nerf, where they used to be able to pay 1 CP and do 20 mortal wounds to you. That's gone, and I lost that game by 2 points. I don't, and I was against a very good pilot. Like I just don't see myself losing to Canoptic Court
Yeah.
on a high table unless they get exceptionally lucky on 4 ups.
I
Um,
think for me, it's like if I throw, I'll be made fun of.
I want to put them right
Like
about
bottom.
here, like at the
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah.
It's like almost, and I want to like also stress Hypercrypt is probably
Harder.
somewhere down here.
Yeah, Hypercrypt is like, oh fuck, if a good hyper player crypt, hyper
Hy
crypt
hy
player
hy
goes into me, it's like, gosh, like that's rough. Because cover basically like doesn't exist. But Canoptic Cord, I'm like, I can beat that stat check. Hypercrypt is like, gosh, I hope they don't understand how to move better than I do.
All you gotta do, guys, +1 to wound on Exalted 8 bound, and use your Eviscerator profile. Kill everything in their army. And then
Yeah.
Canoptic really does not have the damage output to clap back.
No, for sure not. All right, the orcs are currently sitting at a 51 games played. Again, a lot of games and a 49% win rate. So we're actually like pretty close to
Interesting.
that 50-50, which is cool. Um, orcs in my mind is it's like it's definitely like around the Blood Angels area of Thinking Man's game, where it's kind of like there's definitely an element of luck in the sense of if I can psych out my opponent and make them call the wag. This is assuming bully boys. If I can make them call the wag at the wrong time, so that's like maybe I can get lucky. But that's also a Thinking Man's game. So for me, like the element of luck has to be there, and like I have no idea what way the 4+ fuel planes are gonna go here. If they go my way, it's gonna be real good. If they go his way, it's gonna be real bad. Um, but then like it is a thinking man's game in the sense of like you got to put the assets in the right place at the right time. Like I learned so much watching your stream game for how to beat bully boys. I was like, okay, cool. This is the thinking man. This is his game, and I watched it and I was like, I understand now. I understand better than I did before, and I would say they're like probably right there at the bottom of the thinking man's game. Green Tide is just like, did I go first? Yes, I can play the game. No, I lose. Um, and that's just where that is.
Yeah, I think Bully Boys is an uphill battle for us. Until orcs get nerfed. Orcs are going to get nerfed. I think people are calming down. I don't think Bully is as big of a problem as initially perceived. I still think they are overpowered. I don't think we'll ever see them get to 69%, 70% win rate that Eldar got to, and Necrons kind of got close to the Sun with that one. Um, they're probably gonna get nerfed. Mega Knobs will probably go up, I don't know, 10, 20 points. And we'll see them probably get closer to like a middle ground matchup for us. I still think currently they are a orange matchup, if you want to call it that, but like very closely pushing yellow. Like we can
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
we have play into them. Um, but if they just start spiking their 4-up and their feel no pains just a little bit too much, then the ball will just you'll just get steamrolled. Um, best strategy you have is just don't let them roll 4-up feel no pains by just waiting it out. But that means you're playing the game on their terms, and depending on the map and the mission, that may not be good. Which is why, like, some missions, like if we're doing like priority targets, or in my case, like Vital Ground, where like, yeah, both of us are scoring nothing for primary, I'm fine with waiting this out. That's fine. But like, if you're playing a more like get
Purge the
out there and
foe
score a
is
mission,
like
purge,
Purge the foe is just like, oh Jesus, like this is
yeah,
gonna be
like you got to
real
you
bad.
like putting the pressure on you to expose. Yeah, purge the foe is probably the worst matchup you can play into them,
Yeah.
because now it's like you have to start exposing your really killy assets early, because we have nothing that picks up a wall of 20 boys without friends, like, or an extreme overcommitment. So I would probably put them bottom of thinkings, man, like you said.
Yep. Fair, fair, fair. Okay, we've got good old juicy Space Marines coming up next. Only 45 games played. Where are the Space Marine players? But a mighty 62.2% win rate.
Um,
Space Marines kind of tough to talk about because of all the detachments, but also we kind of have to address the fact of like faction specialist world leader player into average Space Marine player is
dream come true almost.
like I don't know.
No,
I
they
kind
they
of
got all the 2 wound bodies. We got all the damage 2 weapons. It's
finally
like
the damage too has a place. Yeah, obviously there's like the Iron Storm builds in there, which are like kind of annoying to play against, but like
okay, but like if we did dangles based off of
Iron Storm,
Iron Storm, right?
yeah,
I mean, we're not really seeing Blood Angels play any variants other than Sons of Sanguinius. Like, there's some Firestorm,
there's some Gladius, but yeah, whatever.
but it's mostly
Uh,
like Sons of
yeah,
Sanguinius. Black Templars, you could argue Gladius or Righteous Crusaders is more popular. Like, there's no raw Space Marine player out there that's just playing their legit salamanders, right? Like, there's nobody playing
uh,
Vulcan. I have not seen a single player playing Vulcan or any of the other like this is like Ultramarine. Like you're talking like this is like peak
I've
Gladius,
played
like
against like
Calgar.
salamanders with Vulcan in Firestorm. It's pretty scary.
Okay.
Like,
Like I'm not saying that I'm
yeah,
just saying like there's not that many of them to
no, no,
constitute
you're completely right. And
like
like at the end of
I
the
don't
day,
want to
a lot of the people actually playing Space Marines are like, I'm going to my first tournament, and that's awesome. That's really great. But like when it comes to like how I'm feeling going into those people, I'm feeling pretty good that I'm gonna beat them.
And if we're
It's not quite easy claps, but it's definitely if I throw, I'll be made fun of for me.
and I think it'll be above Necrons. For me, maybe, yeah, probably above Necrons
I mean, I'd rather play like a Space Marine player than a CK player, to be honest.
until it's like John Lennon with Vanguard Ultramarines with
Sure,
Calgar,
but I don't
right?
need to worry
Then
about that. So
yeah, because there's only one of
good.
those in the
We're good.
world.
Uh, excuse me. So we've got Wolves next, the Wolf Jail. Space Wolves are currently sitting at 23 games played and a 43.5% win rate. So Wolves, for me, I'm kind of like I can move block, I win, but
I
I
mean,
don't know. Obviously, it's like not that easy. Like some people do struggle into Wolves. Um,
they're all damage too. Just
I
-1 damage.
I'm
They
straight
have
up
a
gonna say
billion
like
characters.
Wolves. I'm like we have everything we need to beat this army. Like they're
And
all damage too. We've got -1 damage. Exalted 8 bound. Just like have a field day on these guys. And like Angron has an amazing day against these guys. Blood Surge is still good if they decide to shoot you with those funny wolfen guns. Um, and you
and
can
what
just
I've
move block them into oblivion to make sure their cavalry like just don't do anything.
and what I've found that's worked is like if you have the option to precision somebody out, go for the battle leader, the one that's giving lethal
Yeah, the
hits.
lieutenanty guy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, go for him because he's 6 wounds, which is a nice clean number for Khorne or Mo to just pick him up.
yeah.
Angron will also probably just get him on average. And then put the rest in the squad. Don't worry about the other character because they're like 7 wounds, which is like a really awkward threshold to get to. Um, -1 damage, move block them. Like there's a little bit
I'm gonna
more
straight up say like
advanced.
wolves to me are easy claps. Like
Absolutely.
you
That's where
know,
I was. I've never lost to a Space Wolf player.
yeah,
Um, and I've always felt like I've been in control of the game, especially when you like throw me on WTC. Like, listen to
yeah.
my
Or
recap. It was
UKTC
like
is like
one of the
100%.
better Space
Yeah,
Wolf players in the world I was playing against, and he just wasn't allowed to leave one corridor because I just kept plugging it with a Rhino. If you don't know how to do that, then you're going to get put in wolf jail. But if you just know how to punish mounted, which I really hope Berserker Cav somehow get around this when they eventually do
yeah.
come out.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Yeah,
Like, let me go through walls or something. I don't know. Like this, because it's just Space Wolves requires playing 24 Thunderwolf Cavalry right now, and our profiles are just fantastic into dealing with that many.
yeah,
Like,
for sure. For sure, for sure. Okay, we got Tau up next. Dreaded Tau. 54% win rate though, with 25 games played. I think I'm gonna let you take this one because you actually summarized it really well when we were talking about this in the pre-stream.
so Tau got weaker if we're talking Index Tau into new Index Tau, right? Like they lost their Tetras, which was huge. Tetras supported the hell out of that army. Same thing with the Crisis Battlesuit bricks. Yeah, they got 3 new Crisis Battlesuits, but nothing they have compares to the 6-man death ball of Cyclic Iron Blasters. That was awful to fight against, honestly. It's one of my more least favorite, like 40k moments, is having to fight against 18 of those things flying around, one-shotting anything just by sneezing. Their new detachments encourage them to play more aggressively, right? They're going to be in your face turn 1 and 2. They're going to be trying to movement block you. They're going to be doing a lot of these weird things that may work really well against other armies, but we're just fine with that, right? It's the same amount of lethality that we've been dealing with already. They're just in our face turn 1 and turn 2. I really, maybe I'm wrong here. I haven't gotten a chance to play against New Tau. They're just kind of giving up their best trump card, which is just stalling us and blowing us off the board with mobility and turning that into getting in our face and trying to blow us off the board, but then maybe
Yeah,
they don't, and now we just table them quicker.
I mean,
Like, as soon as
like
Exalted 8-bound get to touch something and they
I
fail a
was gonna
leadership
say,
check,
yeah, I was literally about to say
and
that. Yeah,
so just
like
like protect your Exalted 8-bound from getting blown up and you're
yeah,
fine. Um,
I totally agree. For
I
me,
would
it's
probably put
like
them somewhere in Thinking Man's game because you do have to you have to watch a lot
you gotta
about what's
respect
going
it.
on.
Yeah, I
You
think they're
because
top of Thinking Man's game.
I would say so as well. I don't think they're an easy matchup. Um, Specifically good Tau players that really know how to use mobility will just run circles around you and blow you up.
Yeah.
But I think this matchup got a little easier, just a little bit.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Death of the Commander bricks or Crisis bricks is a big one.
Good.
We got T Sons up next with 34 games and a 42.6% win rate. Honestly, I'm gonna say like shout out to the homies. Like 42.6 with that many games is higher than I thought it would be. For me, T Sons is like assuming equal player skill. It's a little bit of maybe I can get lucky because it's a real big puzzle trying to like
I feel,
outthink the T Sons player.
I feel like the game's just as hard for us as it is for them.
Oh,
And
100%. Like T Sons hate melee pressure and we hate what T Sons do. So it's
we just
like,
hate T-Suns. It's just
yeah,
Overwatch, we have to dodge Overwatch hell, right? Their triple moves can really make your brain hurt. If any of those sorcerers see Angron or Exalted Ape-Bound Brick, they're just in jail for the rest of the game.
yeah. Like, it's like at the start of the game, they hand us like a 12-sided Rubik's Cube, which is all muddled up, and they're like, you solve this. And you hand them just like a square, which is entirely painted red, and you're like, you solve this. And then, like, that's kind of how it is, you know? Um, it's like a super complex game. It's actually, like, honestly, probably my favorite game, my favorite matchup, because I'm just like, I love trying to crack this puzzle. And it's so satisfying when you do. Like, when I see the moment where I'm just like, I've got you now. Like this is gonna be good. Um, and there is like the play pattern is there, but you do need to get a little bit lucky. You do have to be very very clever. It is very much a thinking man's game. Like there's no doubt about that. But like you also have to have luck on your side because like God forbid Magnus just pops off with his double doom bolt, rolls like really hot and just like lifts up a ton of stuff. And you have to be lucky as well in the sense of like when or if you decide to go into Magnus, it's like, well, he's got all that like damage negation. I've got to hope that I do pretty well here with like Mo or
And
something.
Angron will not kill get he Angron won't get close to killing Magnus on
No,
average.
no.
He's at like 11 damage on average. What
Yeah.
that's with rerolls and sustained.
I enjoyed doing that day in the Discord where we were trying to prove to people that we were like, Angron can kill this guy. And everyone was like, he can. And then we were like, no, he can't. And then at the end of the day, everyone was like, no, he can't. Um, so yeah, T Sons is like such a fun matchup. It's a great puzzle to try and crack. You got to be so careful about: am I going to go on the objective? I'm going to risk the rubric eye. Am I going to deep strike here? You know, you can like mess up their double move so much by ingressing a unit as well, which I absolutely love. It's like one of my favorite things to do now is like you see them mapping out an ingress play to get the indirect, and I'm just like, what if I ingress or not an ingress play, a double move play to get their indirect thing? Like if I ingress right here, you just can't do it. Like, heh. Like that's thinking man's game kind of vibe. But we got nades up next. This video's been going on a while, but I think it's a good one. We got nades and then we got world leaders. So let's go. Nades, we have 31 games played and we've got a 59.7% win rate. Nades is like it can be annoying if they decide to put you in like gargoyle jail and run endless swarm against you, but like again, we have the tools to beat that. Other variants of nades are like pretty okay to beat, to be honest. It's like endless swarm is the worry, right? Endless swarm with like double execrete like blasting your ass from downtown. Um to be honest though, it's kind of like an easier version of bully boys to kill in a way. I
That's
don't know.
like
What do you
being
think?
generous to Nids. Um, that army, I don't. Nids does not have the AP to get through marine bodies, power armor bodies very well. They're all AP1, AP2. They have a lot of damage too throughout, which we negate. We can crack their monsters like nothing.
They
A
have like
lot of
literally nothing in the game that can deal with Angron, right?
a lot of their stuff, yeah, a lot of their stuff doesn't have invulns too on their bigger monsters. Some do, some don't. It's a coin flip, but like if we're talking Exocrines and stuff, Angron's just hunting Exocrines all game. Angron's cleaving through whatever junk's in front of him. He might struggle into a Hive Tyrant a little bit, but the Hive Tyrant's not killing him back. Same thing with our Exalted 8-Pound. Like, you have to put the Exalted 8-Pound in front of an Exocrine, and that's kind of your fault if you're doing that. And if you're doing that, that means the Exalted 8-Pound probably already blew something up, right?
Yeah.
Every time I've played this matchup, it's felt like I've been in the driver's seat. Even into Endless Storm, I felt like I was in the driver's seat the whole time.
I still don't think it's quite like easy claps though. I think it's like high end of if I throw I'll be made fun of.
I'd probably agree. Because that's just because Nidless can vary so much.
Yeah,
Um,
there's it's such a deep model range. The detachments are really different. Like if someone turns up with that
the
sneaky one,
core,
Vanguard something, Vanguard Onslaught maybe.
yeah, I've seen some terrifying Vanguard ones that are just triple Gene Stealer bricks,
Yeah,
scouting,
real scary.
infiltrating in your
Yeah.
face. Like
Or it's
I
like
could,
if you just like, close your eyes for too long and the Norn ends up on their objective and you're just like, oh, I can't kill this thing anymore. It's like, oh, that got real bad real fast. But yeah, I think I'm happy with them there. All right, the big one, the World Eater's Mirror, baby. How are you feeling into this one, Brian?
it's the most thinking of thinking man's game. Like,
For me, for me, as a connoisseur of non-grad, with my current build,
oh
it's
God.
easy claps, baby. Easy claps. What are you
Yeah,
gonna do? What are you gonna do against Horny Mo, man? Like, what are you gonna do if you play me? I literally control the board, the
here
game,
comes the
and your
side drift
mind.
rhino and the side drifting rhinos. That matchup goes to whoever has the most rhinos. Which
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, yeah. Kind of, kind of.
I mean, yeah, not I think non-Gron actually has an edge over Angron.
Until Ron revives. If he
And
does,
and
then it's
yeah,
like,
assuming
Ron.
Ron doesn't revive, which the entire tournament I played, he came back once turn 5 in one of my 5 games. I've also played tournaments where he comes back instantly every single game.
Yeah,
God, I hate that mechanic.
I think it's like,
If you see two World Leader players fighting, their longest turn is going to be turn 2, and it's going to take an hour and a half. And then they're going to shake hands, pack up, and leave.
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure when I played Miles in Manchester, our turn two was possibly almost the entire length of the game. We went overtime because turn two was basically like 2.5 hours. Um, I mean, it's like it's a really fun game. It doesn't play like any other game. Much like T Sons, it's a puzzle that you have to solve. The better player will win. I think Non-Gron definitely has the edge just because more stuff, more chaff. If you've got that horny Mo with the free heroic intervention, it's just like cool.
Sure, you
Um,
got access to more combat tricks and you have more trade pieces.
yeah,
That's all it is really. At the end of the day, is like you have an extra trap that you can play. You have an extra trap card,
yeah,
and it's really hard to play around because I believe you can double heroic intervention too, for whatever
yes,
reason,
you
if you
can.
wanted
Yeah,
to.
I don't know why
So
you would do that, but you could do it.
maybe like Angron charges your Exalted 8 bound, and it's just like ring the dinner bell, boys. It's time to like get in there,
I mean, you
right?
could heroically intervene with a Rhino to drift into a Berserker squad and force some attacks. I don't know. Maybe that sounds
No,
kind of
I'm
fun,
saying
actually.
heroic intervene both Mo squads into Ron or something. Like beat them up, boys. Like
Yeah, but only one of them gets to go before Ron goes,
sure, but I mean,
and then
Ron's
he
still
kicks the
probably
door in of the other guy.
sure. Probably not the best idea, but it's
Yeah.
funny. That's all.
Yeah, no, it's
Um,
a great one. Wow, we're really playing the thinking man's game with this tier list, aren't we?
uh-huh.
Okay, so we're kind of there. Let's revisit it and see if we want to move out anything around. Like, how are you feeling about easy claps right now? Does that all make sense to you?
Yeah,
I think it's
I
kind of
would.
funny that we have wolves and easy claps. Like, people seem to like really kind of have a tough time into them, but I'm just like, move block, use your rhinos, use your jackals. Like,
You just use your abilities, guys. You're fine.
yeah, it's gonna
Uh,
be okay. Minus
the
one
f-
damage is a hell of a drug. Don't like
the
spend your CP on Overwatch or
the
whatever
funny
else you're
thing for
using it
me
on.
is like minus a few exceptions. If you turn this upside down, it's the actual just like meta dashboard win rate. Like you have your sister's Thousand Sons Grey Knights orcs all chilling at the top with Eldar,
Yeah,
CSM Blood Angels, and then you have just all the bad armies at the bottom. So that's kind of with a
yeah,
few exceptions, obviously. Like Death Watch, I mean, is a
yeah.
meme. Don't take this with any consideration at all.
I
Um,
think about it.
we got to find that one person's name and post it publicly for shame.
Yeah.
That lost
Dude,
to.
like if someone shows up with like I don't know, three Corvus Black Stars into my non-grot and I can't like do anything about them, I'm just like, oh god, this is bad.
Was it you? Are you the guy?
I might be the problem, yeah.
But yeah, easy claps. I feel pretty solid about. Tyranids, Space Marines, Chaos Knights, Demons, Votan. These are all matchups that I feel universally we should feel good into.
Yeah,
Oops,
yeah.
I kind of
I
moved
think
Tau
that's
down.
fair. Necrons maybe less so.
Necrons,
Necrons
that's
is
more
like
my opinion writing that one. But yeah, what were you saying?
yeah, I think that's I don't know, like I'm less confident in the crowns to be honest.
Okay,
But I still
and
think it's kind of fair.
again, there's Hypercrypt's probably down here, Canoptic's
I,
probably up
I
here for
normally
me,
play Hypercrypt. I very rarely play into Canoptic, so that's probably skewing it.
and it's
Thinking
like
Man's game is like
the inverse for me.
yeah.
Like
Thinking
I
Man's
normally
game
play into
is a
Canoptic.
real stacked sector here. But I think it's fair. Like I mean, a lot. It kind of makes sense. The majority of the armies in the game, it's like I have to switch my brain on if I want to beat them. And a lot of the armies in this section are combat armies, which is like that's usually where I have to switch my brain on.
And yeah, and like this area right here, Thinking's Man game is like we have play into these armies. Like we can beat these armies. It's not a auto win or auto loss. It's not like you're not like, oh shit, I got paired into this. It's definitely like, okay, I just gotta like really lean in and I can pull a miracle out, right? Like you can definitely beat any of these armies no matter the pilot.
Yeah, I don't really think it's like you're pulling a miracle out of your ass, you know, if you like work out the play
Okay,
pattern to beat them.
maybe
But
I should have said pulling a miracle out is for the next four.
oh yeah, for real, for real. I think Bully Boys is like definitely teetering on that edge of like falling into the maybe I can get lucky category, but like yeah, I don't know.
I need a little bit more data on that. I've been clapped and I've clapped. There's nothing in between really.
It's an interesting one.
Uh, Thousand Suns. Yeah, that's
T
mission
Suns,
and
I'm
map
kind of like
dependent.
I don't know, like I could swap T Suns and Orcs around.
Yeah, but I mean, them being right next to each other is fine. Um,
I don't disagree. Yeah,
I
I don't
think the
disagree.
Thousand Suns player definitely has a bit of an edge, assuming equal skill. Um,
I don't know. I'm not sure. Like it's a funny one. Sisters
it's
is Sisters is honestly just like stressful though.
Sisters is just the case of like they just have so much bullshit going
So
on.
much stuff, dude.
And
Like so
every
much stuff on that
time they
enemy.
do it to you, like every time I've been suffer the first time I got suffer and sacrificed, I was like, really?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? What do you
Yeah.
mean Angron has to
They're
punch
also
this
they're
dude?
just using Eldar Fate dice as well. Like they're still using those.
They get
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
dice. I don't know how they, yeah, if I wasn't, Sisters is just infuriating to play against a really good pilot. It just feels like you're being puppeteered the whole time.
Yeah. And then
Grey
like
Knights, I'm pretty, were you saying more stuff on
yeah, no,
Sisters?
I was just gonna say like GK I'm pretty comfortable with and GSC as well.
Yep. And then Death Guard, I'm pretty comfortable putting them there.
Yeah.
Um,
If
that's
we're assuming
also
equal skill here, yeah.
all pilot dependent. Like your average
Also,
Death Guard
dude, like
player.
if you're assuming equal skill and a Debt Watch player walks up to your table in round 5 of a GT final, I would be stressed.
I still am not gonna have an opinion. Yeah, you're right. You're the unicorn. Like you're the
Yeah.
guy. You're the player for Death Watch.
Oh
You
no,
are
you're the one
the
who beat the other World Eaters player. Yeah,
He has
it's a
100%.
funny
That
one.
dude has a 100% win rate in the World Eaters.
What a legend. Well, we don't know about his practice games, but yeah. Um, I guess that is it. Uh, this video has been going on for a while. If you're still with us, folks, thanks so much. It has been a real slog. I hope you have enjoyed our breakdown of all the factions, though. I hope it's given you a little bit of insight. Maybe you disagree with some of our choosings. In fact, people almost certainly do. We would love to hear about your disagreements and fight with you in the comments down below. So drop us a message there. Or hop into our Discord and fight with us in there. If you want to fight with us and pay money, you can sub to our Patreon, where you can get access to the competitive private channel and you can call us really rude names in there, and no one will know because it's only the other Patreons in there. And we might help you with your competitive play as well, and tell you why you can bump that Spaceballs win rate up to the easy clap section when you are struggling, and maybe I can get lucky. But for now, though, unless there's anything else you want to say, Brian,
Oh yeah, I can steal the outro this time. Do I get to do it?
you can do it. You can do it
Oh sweet.
finally.
Yeah, I'm all good. Yeah. Again, guys, most of this is like opinion based. Take it with a grain of salt. Numbers may lie and like back and forth. Like if you just look at the straight meta dashboard, a lot of this probably won't align. This is just all our gut, but I got nothing else to say, Dara.
Awesome. Well, folks,
Right.
that has been this one. You want to do the outro, Brian?
I'll do it.
All right, man.
Uh,
All yours.
my name's Brian. This was Dara. Stay healthy, stay safe, and kill, maim, burn.